He realized I was serious when he showed up at my apartment to work things out, but it wasn't me who opened the door. The new tenant answered. That single moment, that expression on his face when he saw a strange man standing in the doorway of what he still thought was our home, was the purest form of vindication I have ever felt. He stood there, holding a takeout bag from our favorite Italian place, looking utterly bewildered, and the only thing I could think was, finally, you get it. The absolute silence that followed, broken only by the sound of the new guy clearing his throat, was a symphony to my ears. I'm sitting here right now wondering, was I too harsh? Did I take the nuclear option when a simple conversation would have sufficed? Or did I do the only thing possible when a person refuses to see how their actions are destroying the person they claim to love? Tell me honestly, would you have done the same thing? Or was my final move a step too far? To understand why I ended up selling everything and moving an ocean away in less than 3 weeks, you need to know about Mark and his ex, Chloe. Our relationship started like a fairy tale. Mark was charming, funny, driven, everything I thought I wanted. We met at a friend's wedding, and by the end of the year, we were living together in a cozy little 2-bedroom apartment near the city center. We talked about marriage, about kids, about the kind of future you build with someone you believe is your soulmate. The only shadow over our perfect little life was the specter of Chloe. Mark and Chloe had dated for 4 years, and by all accounts, it was an intense, dramatic relationship that ended when Chloe decided to move across the country for a career opportunity without really consulting him. He was heartbroken, and I was the one who helped him piece himself back together. I understood that, and I respected it. What I didn't respect, and what slowly drove a wedge between us that no amount of love could fix, was the constant, incessant, unnecessary entanglement they maintained long after he and I became a serious couple. It started innocently enough. They were friends. They shared a dog walking schedule from when they lived together that somehow still involved Mark dropping off dog food at her new place 2 states away during our weekend trips. Okay, slight exaggeration, but seriously, the excuses were constant. He was helping her with her taxes, fixing her laptop, or just checking in because she was having a bad day. The text messages were relentless. My phone would be buzzing with notifications from him, while his phone, lying face up on the nightstand, would be lighting up with messages from Chloe. And they weren't always innocuous. I remember one morning, months into our relationship, I picked up his phone to check the time and saw a text from her that read, "I really miss how we used to cuddle on Sunday mornings. Hope you're doing okay, babe, babe." I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. When I confronted him, his response was immediate and dismissive. "Oh, that's just how she talks. We were together for 4 years, you're overreacting. It means nothing." He accused me of snooping and being paranoid. The gaslighting had begun, subtle and corrosive, chipping away at my confidence. Over the next year, the intrusions got worse. She'd call him at 11 p.m. crying because her goldfish died or her car tire went flat. Mark would drop whatever we were doing mid-dinner, mid-movie, mid-conversation to soothe her. Once on my birthday, we were at a fancy restaurant, and he took a 20-minute call from her outside because she was having major anxiety about a job interview the next day. I sat alone at the table, picking at my expensive steak, feeling utterly abandoned and insignificant. When he came back, I was fuming. I whispered, trying not to make a scene, "Mark, it's my birthday. Can you please put your phone away? This is unbelievable." He looked genuinely confused. "It's just Chloe. She needed me. You know, she doesn't have anyone else." I countered, "She has friends, she has family. She has a whole life. She doesn't need to monopolize our time, especially today." That's when he hit me with the line that became the mantra of our failed relationship. He leaned across the table and said, with a tone of frustrated patience, "I'm not cutting off my ex just because you're insecure. Get over it." I remember just sitting there, absorbing that blow. Insecure, that was the word he used to dismiss my valid feelings of being disrespected, neglected, and constantly competing with a phantom presence. He didn't see it as a boundary issue, he saw it as my character flaw. I simply said, "Fair point," and the rest of my birthday dinner was silent. But in that silence, something monumental shifted within me. The love didn't vanish instantly, but the respect for him did. The belief that he would ever prioritize me, or our relationship, over the drama and emotional validation he clearly got from being Chloe's perpetual knight in shining armor, evaporated. That night I stopped fighting him, and I started planning my exit. What Mark didn't know was that I was a rising star in my company, an architectural design firm that had been aggressively expanding its global footprint. For months, the company had been trying to woo me into taking a lead position at their new European headquarters. The offer was monumental: a massive pay bump, a substantial relocation package, and the title of lead design architect for the entire Benelux region. The location, Amsterdam. I had been offered the position 3 times. The first time, I told them I wasn't ready to move away from my life with Mark. The second time, I hedged, saying I needed more time to consider. The third time, 2 weeks before the birthday debacle, I had politely but firmly declined, citing personal commitments, which was Mark. I loved the idea of Amsterdam, but I was so invested in our life together, in the house we hoped to buy, that I couldn't imagine leaving. After the insecure comment, I immediately sent a short professional email to my CEO. Regarding the Amsterdam opportunity, I have reconsidered. I accept. Please send over the final contract details and begin the relocation process immediately. I can be ready to move in less than 1 month. I knew this was a drastic move, but the sheer weight of knowing I had an escape route, a brilliant, life-changing escape route, was intoxicating. The next few weeks were a masterclass in compartmentalization and silent execution. I continued life as normal with Mark, cooking his favorite meals, watching movies, even planning a fake weekend trip, all while secretly dismantling our shared life. During the day, I was finalizing my contract, getting my visa approved, and coordinating with the moving company. When Mark was at work, I was at the bank, separating our finances and putting the apartment on the market with a local realtor. The apartment was technically mine. I had bought it before we met, so I had the sole legal authority to sell it. I made sure the sale was swift and confidential, agreeing to an extremely tight 21-day closing period for an all-cash offer. I told the realtor I needed complete discretion, and that the current occupant was not to be informed until the day the contract was signed. My entire life became a covert operation. I started packing my belongings in small boxes and storing them at a friend's house, telling Mark I was just cleaning out clutter and giving things away. He barely noticed. He was too busy texting Chloe about her cat's cough. Every time he failed to notice a piece of furniture disappear or a closet empty out, I felt a fresh wave of confirmation that I was doing the right thing. He simply wasn't paying attention to me. One evening he came home visibly upset. "Chloe's going through something really rough," he announced, collapsing onto the sofa. "Her car broke down, she got a parking ticket, and she had a bad review at work. She needs me to talk to her." I was sitting across from him, going through a stack of papers that were actually the final closing documents for the sale of the apartment. I looked up, gave him a bland smile, and said, "That sounds terrible. I hope she feels better." He looked at me, irritated by my lack of drama or sympathy. "That's it. That's all you have to say. I thought you were a compassionate person." I stood up, walked into the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water. "Mark," I said, my voice calm, "you've made it abundantly clear that my feelings and concerns about your relationship with Chloe are rooted in my insecurity. Therefore, I'm choosing to believe you. She's just a friend, and her car breaking down is not an emergency that requires you to abandon our time together. I'm supporting you in not overreacting, just as you requested." The look on his face was priceless, a mix of confusion and indignation. He was used to me arguing, pleading, or crying. He didn't know how to handle my complete, calm detachment. He retreated to the bedroom to make his distress call to Chloe, and I sat in the living room, signing the papers that secured my freedom. The final day arrived. The closing was scheduled for 10 a.m., and my flight to Amsterdam was at 7 p.m. I had packed 2 suitcases and a carry-on, leaving behind all the furniture and non-personal items that the buyer had agreed to take as part of the quick sale. I left Mark a letter on the kitchen counter. It wasn't a tearful goodbye. It was a bill of grievances, a statement of fact, and a final declaration of independence. I explained how his unwillingness to set a simple boundary had not only killed my love for him, but had also cost him his entire life with me. I explicitly mentioned that I was moving to Amsterdam to take the job I declined for him, and that the apartment was no longer ours, or even his, as of 10 a.m. that morning. I even included the new owner's realtor's card, so he could call them to arrange a time to collect his remaining personal items. I gathered my luggage, took one last look at the apartment where I had built, and then meticulously dismantled my life and walked out. I didn't look back. I drove straight to my friend's place, picked up the stored boxes, and headed to the airport. Now I was already across the Atlantic, sitting in a temporary apartment in the charming Jordan district of Amsterdam, when the fallout began. Mark's initial reaction was rage. My phone blew up with furious messages, accusations of betrayal, theft of our shared life, I suppose, and declarations that I was crazy. He was calling me relentlessly, demanding to know where I was and what I thought I was doing. I didn't answer a single call or text. I had changed my number shortly after landing, but I had kept the old one active on airplane mode to monitor his escalating desperation. He had called my office, but they simply stated I had relocated to the European headquarters and could only be contacted through official channels, which, of course, I controlled. His world was disintegrating, and he couldn't find the person responsible for the destruction. It all came to a head a few days after I left. My last conversation with my friend before I deactivated the old number was when she confirmed the apartment keys had been handed over and the new tenant had moved in. I imagine Mark having exhausted all his options, sitting alone in a cheap hotel room, realizing the true gravity of his loss. He hadn't just lost a girlfriend. He had lost his home, his comfortable, easy life, and the woman who loved him unconditionally. He finally saw the emptiness that his ex-girlfriend's drama had created. It was the realization that I wasn't just insecure. I was a woman who required a basic level of respect, and when he refused to give it, I took everything, including myself, off the table. He finally called my friend's number, asking if she knew where I was. She simply told him, "She's where she needs to be, Mark. The apartment is sold. You need to move on." So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I could have stayed and continued to plead and fight for his attention, slowly turning into a bitter, resentful shell of myself. Or I could stage a full-scale, devastating exit that would force him to confront the consequences of his actions. Before I tell you about the final, dramatic scene that my friend witnessed and relayed to me, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have stayed and tried to work it out, or would you have packed your bags and accepted Amsterdam like I did? Do you think my move was cruel, or was it simply self-preservation? Let me know your gut reaction. The climax arrived on a Friday evening. Mark, realizing he had absolutely nowhere to go, decided to make one last desperate attempt to work things out. He must have decided that after a few days of silence, I would be ready to forgive him and let him back into the apartment. He went to our favorite Italian place, ordered all the dishes we usually shared, the carbonara, the garlic knots, the cheap bottle of Chianti, and drove back to the apartment, convinced he was about to enact the romantic reconciliation scene he'd probably rehearsed in his mind. He was going to apologize, promise to cut off Chloe now that it was too late, and beg for me back. He pulled up, parked in his usual spot, and walked up the familiar steps, carrying the bag of food and a bouquet of slightly crushed grocery store roses. He fumbled for his key in his pocket. He hadn't bothered to change the locks immediately. Why would he? It was just a formality. He inserted the key, turned the knob, and stepped inside. The first thing he noticed was that the air smelled different, not like our apartment. The second thing was the furniture. Our sofa was gone, replaced by a sleek, modern sectional. Our old rug was gone, replaced by something minimalist and geometric. The place was definitely furnished, but nothing was ours. He stood frozen in the entryway, the bag of Italian food hanging forgotten from his hand. That's when he heard footsteps from the hallway. A man, late 30s, tall, with an air of professional efficiency, walked out, tying the belt of a silk dressing gown. The man looked at Mark, clearly an intruder, with a cool, querying expression. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice crisp and unfamiliar. Mark, utterly dumbfounded, stammered, I live here. Where is my name?" The man, the new tenant, a handsome, successful-looking lawyer, simply leaned against the doorframe, a faint, polite smile on his face. The new tenant answered the door. He stated matter-of-factly, "I'm afraid you must be mistaken. I bought this unit 3 days ago. Your key won't work anymore. As for the previous owner, she informed me she took a new job in Amsterdam and relocated permanently." He gestured to the takeout bag and the roses. "If you're looking for an apology or a tearful reunion, you're at the wrong address, mate. Now, if you don't mind, I have a long week ahead." Mark didn't say another word. He just stared at the stranger in his living room, holding the food that was supposed to fix everything, and the sheer, brutal reality of his situation crashed down on him. The new tenant gently closed the door. Mark was left standing on the welcome mat, which was no longer the one we had picked out alone, homeless, and finally, completely understood. He called my friend again, his voice raw with despair. She really left. She sold the apartment. She actually did it. He didn't sound angry. He sounded broken. My friend, bless her heart, simply said, "Yes, Mark. You told her she was insecure for asking for basic respect. She chose to prioritize herself. She accepted Amsterdam." That was the last I heard of the dramatic, emotional fallout. In the aftermath, I thrived in Amsterdam. The job was demanding but exhilarating. My confidence, which Mark had tried so hard to label as insecurity, returned in full force. I found a lovely new apartment overlooking a canal, made wonderful new friends, and built a life that was authentically mine, free from the constant shadow of a needy ex-girlfriend and a weak man. I realized that Mark didn't love Chloe. He loved the feeling of being needed by her, and he allowed that need to completely overshadow the woman who was actually committed to him. He never truly saw me, because he was always looking back at her. The move wasn't revenge. It was a profound act of self-care and a testament to the fact that when you refuse to be a priority in someone's life, you must be your own. I heard through the grapevine months later that Mark ended up moving back in with his parents, and that, ironically, Chloe finally moved on to a new relationship, leaving him completely alone and unneeded. He lost everything because he refused to set a single, simple boundary. This entire experience taught me a vital lesson. Never let anyone, especially the person who is supposed to love you most, define your valid concerns as your weakness. My reaction, the acceptance of Amsterdam, the secret sale of the apartment, the quiet eggs, it was not the act of an insecure woman. It was the calculated, surgical severance of a woman who was done being disrespected. I didn't owe him a negotiation. I owed myself a better life. So when people ask if I regret the drama, the answer is a resounding no. It was necessary. It was loud, even though I was silent. It was the only way to make the point crystal clear. If you've ever been in a situation where you had to choose between your self-respect and the person you love, you know how hard this decision was. Like this video if you were totally on my side when I accepted the Amsterdam offer. Subscribe to my channel for more real, raw stories of heartbreak and unexpected triumph like this one. And please share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. Do you think Mark ever truly understood what he lost? I'll see you all in the next story.